I'm Eric Hayden with the National Weather Service in Newport, Morehead City. This is our Facebook Live. I apologize. We mentioned that we'd be on just a little bit after 3 o'clock. We want to get some of the latest data before we mentioned a couple of key facts to you. The main point of this Facebook Live is really about preparation for Dorian. We'll go over where the storm is headed, but we want to focus on what we should be doing here across eastern North Carolina. That's preparation. Do you have your hurricane kit ready? In fact, we put a poll question in this Facebook Live. Answer that for us. In addition, we want to hear your questions. We'll try to provide some answers and clarification for what we expect for the upcoming week. We are still really far away from the storm itself, so not a lot of specifics on exactly what we can expect storm-wise. But again, the focus with this Facebook Live will be preparation, but also how you can get official sources of information. That's one of the first things I want to start off with, what's going on with Dorian right now. The big news was earlier this morning, upgraded to a Category 5 storm. Top winds are 185 miles per hour, continuing to move off to the west through the Bahamas. That storm track is expected to continue and really slow down here over the next couple of days. And that's the big question. Where exactly does Dorian turn northward toward Florida, Georgia, or somewhere in the Carolinas? Something we hope to answer here over the next couple of days. One thing we want to stress is continue to follow official sources of information. We put a couple of links in this Facebook Live to get you started. One is the Hurricane Center. Excellent resource of hurricane preparedness information and also the current forecast itself. And we have our local forecast page there. We're going to talk here in a second about what you should have in your hurricane kit. As you look at this, you can prepare. If we go too fast, use the link we put in on our Facebook Live page. That will certainly help out. So a couple things I want to show you with our hurricane kit itself. This is something, unfortunately, we had a lot of practice with Florence just last year. Some items that you want to have in the kit itself. You certainly want to start off with things like food and water. And when we're talking about food, we're talking about non-perishables. So items like canned goods, maybe nuts, in addition to bottled water, some juices and things like that for the kids. So things that can be with you for days on end in terms of not being concerned about being without power. Keep in mind, a lot of us last year with Florence did not have power 3, 4, 5, 7 or 8 days. So again, we're talking about items food-wise that don't have to be refrigerated or kept on ice. This is my kit. I just grabbed it from home. My wife did an excellent job doing this. The first thing she started with was a list of what we needed. So some of this was just to replace items we had from Florence last year and ran out of. Other things were things that we wanted to do differently this time around. This kit won't be all-encompassing. This is just to give you a general idea. You certainly want a first aid kit. That's something helpful. If we do lose power, you want plenty of batteries and flashlights. So different types of flashlights, that's always a good idea. One thing that I learned last year, having hand sanitizer, so if your water supply is cut off, that's always a good idea as well. So you can get the liquid form or you can get the handy wipes. They work just as well for that. So we have a lot of different things in here, paper plates and aluminum foil. If we do any cooking, it'll probably be on a propane stove. So this is just to get you started on some of the things that I have in my kit at home. Again, in the link for this Facebook Live, we have the ready.gov website, and that will give you more preparation on what you should have. The old guidance was 3 to 5 days. Think more 7 days at least. A lot of us, again, were without power for a good week with Florence last time around. So anytime you have your hurricane kit, you want to prepare for at least a week. And this is not just because Dorian is approaching. I know a lot of us, it kind of gives us a kick in the pants to get ahead and make that kit. This is something we should be doing all summer. So if you haven't gone out and do that, now is certainly the time to do it. I want to talk about the track itself with Dorian, something that we've been watching here the last couple of days for sure. The latest track from the National Hurricane Center continues to move off to the west, eventually west-northwest through early next week. Then as the storm approaches Florida, it will start to slow down and turn northward. And exactly when that turn happens, that will make the difference between whether or not we see a landfall across Florida, Georgia, or somewhere in the Carolinas. As far as we're concerned, a couple key messages we want to get out. With this official track right now, that would be off the South Carolina coast sometime Thursday morning and off our coast sometime late Thursday or into the day on Friday. So it is moving a little bit slower than some of the previous forecasts. Based on this track right now, we could expect 5 to 10 inches of rain locally in our area, perhaps isolated amounts up to 15 inches where some of that heavier rain sets up. Since we're on the forecast track, I want to mention a couple things. Outside of the forecast itself, do you know what the forecast cone is? The National Hurricane Center has an excellent video that goes more in depth, but I want to emphasize that this forecast cone only shows the most probable path for just the center of the storm. It does not show where the impacts will be. In fact, you can see on the graphic now, this orange area is showing the tropical storm force winds with Dorian extending outside of the cone itself. So the cone just shows us the most probable area for where the center will go. And case in point, right now on the official track, it keeps the center of Dorian off the Carolina coast in that Thursday, Friday timeframe. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods. It doesn't mean that it's not going to impact us. Please keep in mind that impacts occur well away from the center of the storm itself. So even if this storm track shifts around a little bit, we're expecting the storm to actually get a little bit larger as it moves northward, and we do expect impacts across the Carolinas. So I definitely want to mention that about the forecast cone itself. The other thing I want to mention, I mentioned follow official sources, whether that's hurricanes.gov, that's the National Hurricane Center website. Again, that link is in our Facebook Live. And then I know we have a lot of fans that are watching from Florida or Georgia or even up toward Maryland. Just go to weather.gov. .gov, that's the official government website, and no matter where you live, Maine to Florida, you click on the part of the country that you live in, and that will give you your local forecast. The other thing I want to mention, in addition to the forecast cone, is category. Right now it's a Category 5 storm, certainly very impressive and something to be respected. Here locally, though, we're trying to really de-emphasize just focusing on the category itself. The category of the storm only tells you about the wind speed. It's to be respected, but it's only part of the story. It's not the big picture. It says nothing about storm surge. It says nothing about how much rain we'll see. It says nothing about how large the storm is or perhaps how slow moving it is. So again, category is part of the story, but as we get forward in time, the official forecast as Dorian moves our way is that the category of the storm, just the wind, is actually expected to weaken as we head toward Wednesday and Thursday. So do not let your guard down if the category of the storm starts to go lower. It doesn't mean that we don't need to be prepared. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't take Dorian serious. Focus on other aspects beyond category, such as that wind, surge, and where the rain will set up itself. So again, encourage you folks, if you're just joining us on Facebook Live, we did a little bit on preparation. I know some folks are running out to the stores and things are already running out. Hopefully they will restock. We still have a lot of time to prepare for the storm, so it's not too late. One thing on the preparation that I didn't mention was having cash on hand is another good thing, because if the power goes out, your ATMs and electronics will not work. And then the other thing is have that gas tank at least 3/4 of a tank or more full. You don't want to get down to empty and then have to go out for gas by midweek, because then you may end up having to wait in a line. So the point of this Facebook Live was to go over preparation, where you can get official sources of information, but also turn it over to you for questions. Do we have any questions? And before we get to those, I want to thank Mike Lee, one of our forecasters here at the Weather Service. He is behind the scenes right now. He set all of this up, so we had a nice Facebook Live. And I also want to mention we're in our conference room. It's just us two right now, but there's 4 or 5 employees just on the other side of the wall that are working hard on your forecast. We are here 24/7, all the offices across the country working for you, not just when there's a Dorian, but 24/7, 365 throughout the year. So just keep that in mind, that you have a lot of men and women behind you that are making this forecast so that you can keep your family safe. So speaking of that, before we wrap things up, do we have any good questions there, Mike, from the audience?
Yeah, we've got a couple of good questions from a lot of folks. One of the most common questions we're getting is, of course, about evacuations.
Okay.
Mainly, who gives that call and when would that call be made?
Okay, so great question, and hopefully you heard Mike, but I'll just repeat it just in case. A lot of questions we're getting are about evacuations. Who makes the call and what goes into it? So here at the Weather Service, our main mission is protection of life and property. So we provide forecast and information to the public officials that make that decision. So we don't tell you whether or not you should evacuate. We don't suggest if people should evacuate or not. We provide the public officials that information. How high will the water get? Where's the heavy rain going to be? What will be the top winds? Based on that, based on history in the county and a lot of information they have on who's most vulnerable, they will make that determination. And that's a great question. David Glenn, one of our boss here at the Weather Service in Newport, our meteorologist in charge, he just had a meeting with those local officials at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We will continue to do that over the next couple of days. We are very good friends with our local officials. We go to meetings throughout the year, know them on a first name basis. So they know us, they listen to our forecast, and based on that, they'll make that decision whether or not you need to evacuate. That is one good point. Make sure you listen to those folks as we get later in the week and the confidence grows on whether or not we'll see significant impacts or not from Dorian. Those decisions will be made. Anything else there, Mike?
One question regarding the timing of the storm.
Okay.
When would we expect to see this get close to our area?
Very good question about timing, and I want to take a step back. We are already seeing impacts from Dorian in our area, and that is with regards to rip currents. Luckily, we're getting through Labor Day weekend. So far, so good. Everybody's been doing what they should at the beaches. We still have a high risk for rip currents because this is a large, very powerful storm. So the swells from Dorian are already reaching our beaches. So if you are still headed to the beach the next couple of days, stay out of the water. The risk for rip currents will be high. Now, regarding that question, what you're probably getting at is more, when are we going to see the winds and the rain, the things like that, possible storm surge? Based on this current track, the center of Dorian would be somewhere off the South Carolina coast early Thursday morning. So as far as we're concerned, the winds would pick up sometime later Wednesday. And then with this track off the coast by Friday morning, the peak of the wind and the rain and the surge would be sometime Thursday into Friday. We're being vague with that timing on purpose. We're still about 4 days out. And if you've watched the last couple of days, the timing has slowed just a little bit. So based on the current track, our best guidance would suggest sometime Thursday or into the day Friday would be the worst wind and surge and rainfall. All right, I think we're going to wrap things up unless you had any more for me, Mike. He's kind of scrolling through. If you're just joining us, we're going to post this on our Facebook page. So if you're just checking in and, oh, I missed it, don't worry. You can always watch the beginning. And again, the main thing we went over in the beginning was preparation, what you should have in your kit. I know a lot of us had this experience with Florence, so we've been through it. And we want to be interactive. That's my kit from home. It's certainly not perfect, but it's better than nothing. A lot of locals have been through many storms. What do you have in your kit? What things are you doing? In the comments below, share what you're doing with your neighbor. Post pictures of what you're doing. We have a very transient population in our area. We have wonderful military bases in Camp Lejeune and also Cherry Point. Some of those folks just got here in January and February and March. This is all new to them. You may have lived in Morehead City or New Bern or Greenville or Jacksonville for 30 years. Your neighbor may have just moved down from California or Ohio. So all of this information may be second hat to you. Just share that with them. And that's always good information to share with neighbors because, again, they may not be as used to it as you are.
So we actually do have a couple of folks who just moved into the area. And what would you tell them? Anyone that's a first-time coastal resident, what quick 5 tips? Yeah. What would you tell them?
So quick 5 tips. Number 1, follow only official sources of information. That would be the Hurricane Center or our local page. Stick with the information that is official. Listen to your local officials. If they tell you to evacuate, if you're in a vulnerable area, listen to those folks. Don't focus on the category. The category is only wind speed. It's to be respected. Are you going to see rain, storm surge, tornadoes, rip currents? What are your impacts from the storm itself? And then have that hurricane kit ready. I know we're getting close and things are running out, so this is a good reminder for next year, May, June, July. Much easier to go to the store and get a case of water when not everybody's trying to get the same thing. So those are some of the tips that we would recommend for somebody new to the area.
Well, that's all the questions.
All right, so we're going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have a link for our website, weather.gov/Newport. Twice a day, we'll be sending briefings to the website itself, and that will update you on Dorian, what we can expect in terms of local impacts to the area. Usually, we're aiming to get that update out by about 6 or 6:30 in the evening, and then by 8 a.m. in the morning. So if you go to our website, you can get that information. Obviously, we're on Facebook, but we're also on Twitter and YouTube. All you need to do is search NWS Morehead City, and you can find that local information. Thank you very much for joining us. Help us out, spread the message of official information. Share this Facebook feed. Anytime we post something, please share it. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend, so we can get that important, consistent message out. We'll talk to you guys again over the next couple of days and update you on Dorian as the track continues to move toward the East Coast.